is a huge Week 7 slate across the state, perhaps nowhere bigger than in the capital city. Austin is absolutely loaded with giant games, and who better to talk about it than the guru of Austin area high school football. We are joined by the Austin American Statesman's Thomas Jones. Hello, Thomas. How are you?
Hello, gentlemen. How's it going up there?
Things are wonderful.
Good.
Are you having the same cold front that we have?
Oh yeah, it's awesome.
It is
great.
Awesome.
It feels for about 12 hours.
I got to wear a robe this morning.
Yeah. Listen, we are ready. It just feels more like football, and it especially feels more like football with one of the best games in the state coming up this week with Lake Travis taking on Austin Westlake. It won't just happen at the Cotton Bowl for Texas versus OU when Baker Mayfield takes on Sam Ehlinger. It's also taking place at the high school level. Lake Travis.
Oh yeah.
Lake Travis has recovered nicely from its opening week loss to Converse Judson. Westlake, it just keeps on keeping on. For you, what are you expecting from this Lake Travis-Westlake game going on Friday night at Schaap Stadium?
There's that noted Boston Red Sox philosopher fan, George Santayana. He said, those who can't remember history are doomed to repeat it. Mm-hmm. So I remember history. So, honestly, it's Lake Travis going to win until Westlake proves me otherwise. And this could be the year. I mean, if Westlake can't do it this year, then when? This is a young Lake Travis team aside from that quarterback.
Yeah, and for me, the thing that I look at in this game is that Westlake's running game with Nakia Watson has been so special this year. They've got that running game going up against a Lake Travis defense that is improved. I think that it's getting a little bit better as weeks go on, but I also think it's a pretty significant step back from last year's state championship game. What are maybe the one or two things that you're looking for as far as keys to the game in Friday night's showdown?
I mean, I think you're right with that Lake Travis defense. I mean, take out that kind of odd shutout win they had over Hendrickson, and they're giving up 38 a game. Mm-hmm. But their two most experienced defensive players, Reed Bacon and Kate Langston, are both on the line. So, if anything, they kind of match up pretty well with a power running game like what Westlake brings Nakia Watson. But they just have to play better. I mean, they just have to. Westlake will chew up that clock with Nakia Watson too. And they need to give the ball to Baldwin and Garrett Wilson and let those guys do their thing. So I think you're right. That's the key to the game. Can they slow that running game?
There's also, but that's the headliner, and I know that that's the game that everybody's going to be paying attention to, around the state. But it's a very deep week in the Austin area. A lot of exciting games. You go a little bit north of town, and you get to Liberty Hill. Liberty Hill's got a major matchup with a state-ranked squad in Waco, La Vega. I think Liberty Hill may be flying a bit under the radar. They're going up. They got a tough test this week against La Vega. If Liberty Hill's going to go and pull off what would probably be an upset, what do you think are the keys for Liberty Hill this week?
I mean, how about Coach Jeff Walker at Liberty Hill? First-year guy taking over for the legend Jerry Vance. Mm-hmm. And, when a slot T is working to perfection, that bad boy is poetry in motion, man. There's nothing prettier. And Jeff Walker knows how to run that slot T. I mean, what did Liberty Hill drop? 70 and 700 yards on Brownwood a few weeks ago? Mm-hmm. I mean, crazy. But their defense hasn't been that great. And we know what Waco La Vega is going to bring. Jamal Williams, their quarterback. They got those two running backs, Cameron Henry. Who's the other one? John Richards. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's a big-time team. I mean, there's a reason they're, 34-1 over the last 2.5 years?
Yeah, they've been dominant, and this is really, in my mind, you look at this La Vega game, and I know that China Springs still looms large in that district, but at the same time, if Liberty Hill wants to get up into that conversation, this is a game that I think they need to have a good showing in, at least have a good showing in, if not win. So this is, I think, a critical game in this district. We're talking with Thomas Jones of the Austin American Statesman here on Texas Football Today. Get involved in the conversation, hashtag TFToday. I want to ask you, there's other games in the Austin area that are particularly interesting to me. One that I think is maybe flying under the radar, because it's not, I think at this time you're looking at teams that are undefeated or maybe have one loss. These records are maybe not indicative of how good these two teams are. But Del Valle takes on Bowie this week in a game that I'm really excited about, a game that I think could have major ramifications as far as the playoff chase is concerned.
I agree with you. A week ago, I really would have agreed with you because Del Valle has, 3 kids going to D1 college. I mean, it's their best talent class in the history of that school, really. But they got beat, 31-15 by San Marcos last week? The Rattlers kind of exposed Del Valle a little bit. I don't know if Del Valle has enough defense to slow down a pretty explosive Bowie offense. Now, Bowie's defense isn't quite what we saw last year, and so Del Valle also runs that slot T, and Alfred Greer can get that corner. He had a 95-yard touchdown run against San Marcos. So they can make some plays, but I don't know if they can keep up with Bowie. I think Bowie's still the team to beat in that district, and I think if any team's going to beat them, it'll be San Marcos.
Yeah, this is an interesting matchup, probably, maybe for second place in that district, but this district is really deep and a lot better than it has been in past years, which I think makes this particularly exciting. I know that you were, I want to kick it back to, you were talking about San Marcos, because I know you were at that San Marcos Del Valle game. Just very briefly, what were your thoughts on San Marcos, seeing them in person?
Prudencio Calderon, who's a great defensive back, gonna play DB at Rice. He looked like a quarterback. He wasn't just an athlete playing quarterback. He knows what he's doing back there. He throws a pretty ball. He was better than I thought as a quarterback, and that's how San Marcos is using him. So that makes him doubly dangerous.
Yeah, for sure. It's a dangerous Rattler squad that's off to a great start in District 14 6A. There's another game in Austin that's particularly interesting to me. It's the Battle of Round Rock up there. Year in and year out, and we've gotten used to talking about how Round Rock High has been so great. They've really fallen on hard times, and it seems like the two teams in Round Rock that are probably the best chance of making deep runs go at it this week, with Cedar Ridge taking on Stony Point. Stony Point, for folks who maybe have just gained high school football consciousness, they may not remember when Stony Point was the dominant force, maybe not even just in Round Rock, but arguably in the kind of the suburban Austin area.
They had a run.
Yeah. Now Cedar Ridge, a lot of new pieces there with Cedar Ridge, but they just keep on humming 5-1 on the year. What are your overall thoughts on when Cedar Ridge takes on Stony Point?
Well, we're talking about what they did a few years ago. I mean, Coach Greg Cheshire for Stony Point, he'll be seeing those Trinity uniforms in his nightmare for the rest of his life, man. That was the only thing that kept them from winning state, in my opinion. But this year's team, now remember, I think if you look at their record, it's going to say 3-3, but they had to forfeit their first two games of the year because of a questioned on-eligible player. So they're 5-1 on the field, and they're scoring a lot of points. But Cedar Ridge is playing at another level. I mean, another first-year coach, Sam Robinson. He was a DC last year. Just a balanced team. Zeke Koss at quarterback is your kind of typical game manager, very efficient. Sini Bakari, the 230-pound running back that just wears down defenses. And you guys watch this receiver, Jalen Ellis. He scored 5 touchdowns last week. 3 receiving, 1 on a reverse, 1 on a kick return. Big-time playmaker.
Is that all?
Yeah, really. We're talking with Thomas Jones.
Slacker. He's a slacker.
Yeah, what's he even doing here? We're talking with Thomas Jones, the Austin American Statesman. And then I want to ask you about one other team that I think has kind of flown under the radar more so than they usually do. Maybe it's because they lost in week 1, but Cedar Park, they drop their opener to Hewitt Midway, at Gupson Stadium. But since then, it's been pretty much vintage Cedar Park. Do you feel like this team maybe is flying under the radar more so than they usually do?
Yeah, it's interesting. I was at that game where Midway beat them, and after the game, people were saying, what's wrong with Cedar Park? I was like, well, it's about what's right with Midway. That's a damn good 6A team, as we've seen. And since then, I mean, Cedar Park is just doing what Cedar Park does, and that's winning games. Now, they don't blow you out on the ground like they used to do. Max Sexton, the quarterback, has 1,200 yards passing, 18 touchdowns, no picks. I think he's throwing a 73% completion rate. Jeez. So that's their best offense. They're an efficient passing game that can go downfield. And then, Max will tell you, back when he covered the Cavaliers, Keith Nichols and Jackson Buckingham, those guys are just studs. And just typical Black Rain defense.
Yeah, it's vintage Cedar Park, and
they have the guts to go man, and it's what sets them apart.
Yeah, and they're gonna be there in the end. He is Thomas Jones. Yeah. He is the guy to talk to in the Austin area. Get the Austin American Statesman. Follow him on Twitter at Thomas Jones AAS. Thomas, appreciate your time and your insights, and enjoy this week and enjoy this cool weather while it lasts.
All right, boys. Have a good day up there. Thank you.
There he goes, Thomas Jones, the Austin American Statesman, talking a little